As we gather together in solidarity to express a feeling of mass injustice, we must not lose sight of what brought us together. We write so that all people who feel wronged by the corporate forces of the world can know that we are your allies. As one people, united, we acknowledge the reality that the future of the human race requires the cooperation of its members, that our system must protect our rights, and upon corruption of that system, it is up to the individuals to protect their own rights and those of their neighbors, that a democratic government derives its power from the people. But corporations do not seek consent to extract wealth from the people and the earth, and that no true democracy is attainable when the process is determined by economic power.
Yeah.
We come to you at a time when corporations, which place profit over people, self-interest over justice, and oppression over equality, run our governments. We have peacefully assembled here, as is our right, to let these facts be known. They have taken our houses through an illegal foreclosure process despite not having the original mortgage. They have taken bailouts from taxpayers with impunity and continue to give executives exorbitant bonuses. They have perpetuated inequality and discrimination in the workplace based on age, the color of one's skin, sex, gender, identity, and sexual orientation. They have poisoned the food supply through negligence and undermined the farming system through monopolization. They have profited off of the torture, confinement, and cruel treatment of countless non-human animals and actively hide these practices. They have continuously sought to strip employees of the right to negotiate for better pay and safer working conditions. They have held students hostage with tens of thousands of dollars of debt on education, which is itself a human right. They have consistently outsourced labor and used that outsourcing as leverage to cut workers' health care and pay. They have influenced the courts to achieve the same rights as people with none of the culpability or responsibility. They have spent millions of dollars on legal teams that look for ways to get them out of contracts in regards to health insurance. They have sold our privacy as a commodity. They have used the military and police force to prevent freedom of the press. They have deliberately declined to recall faulty products, endangering lives in the pursuit of profit. They determine economic policy despite the catastrophic failures their policies have produced and continue to produce. They have donated large sums of money to politicians that are supposed to be regulating them. Makes no sense. Makes no sense.
Makes no sense.
They continue to block alternate forms of energy to keep us dependent on oil. They continue to block generic forms of medicine that could save people's lives in order to protect investments that have already turned a substantive profit. Makes no sense. They have purposely covered up oil spills, accidents, faulty bookkeeping, and inactive ingredients in pursuit of profit. Just ain't right. Just ain't right. Plain and simple. They purposely keep people misinformed and fearful through their control of the media. Just ain't right.
It ain't right.
They have accepted private contracts to murder prisoners even when presented with serious doubts about their guilt.
99%. We are the 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 99%. The 99%. We are the 99%. We are the 99%. We are
warm welcome. Dr. West and I were here earlier today for those who were around. And we promised to come back, and here we are. We came back a second time today. And we came back a second time. I want to be very brief and let Dr. West say a word. I know there are others who haven't spoken yet, and I feel like we're monopolizing, but we've been here twice again already today. Yeah. We appreciate it. Dr. West and I came back tonight because he was on Anderson Cooper on CNN, and he insisted that they take him live from this protest. And Dr. West was just on CNN on the corner right there with you as the backdrop, and that was a great picture. And then we both appeared together on Keith Olbermann. We just came off of Keith's show on Current TV. And so we're doing everything we can to try to get this message out. I believe as a member of the media on public television, especially on public television and public radio, it is my mission, it's my mandate, it's my calling, my vocation, my purpose to try to get Americans who don't get this to re-examine the assumptions they hold. Yeah! My job is to try to help them to expand their inventory of ideas. My job on public TV and public radio is to try to get them to look at this country and the crisis of this country through a different prism. That's the job that I try to do every day on public TV and public radio. So I'm always honored to be a part of a struggle that's trying to get America to wrestle with its own demons, wrestle with its own challenges, its own crises. I wanted to share with you when Dr. West and I appeared on Keith's show just a moment ago on Current Television. One of the questions that he asked us, because this critique is moving around the country, that this movement is 99% white. Right. Exactly. Right. And Dr. West and I just pushed back on that live on national television. This is multicultural, this is multi-ethnic. This protest is a microcosm of this city, and it's a microcosm of this country. Y'all didn't count loud enough on that. Protest is all about. And I just came back right quick to say, for those of us who live and work, or who live and are trying to work in this so-called city of the angels, I came back to say that if we are serious about taking our future into our own hands, when persons, I know we're streaming live right now, so I'm talking to folk right now who are not here. Folk who are not here right now, but know that they're catching hell. Know that they can't find a job. Know that they can't afford their student loans. Know that they're living back home with their mom and them. Know that they don't have access to health care, etc., etc., etc. If you have a legitimate grievance, this is where you need to be. I said to Keith when Keith asked whether or not there was a problem with the fact that the movement at the moment doesn't have a cohesive or coherent message, that there isn't a laundry list of demands. Yes. I said, who said? I like this right here. But who said that there are a variety of legitimate grievances here at this protest? About jobs, about getting out of Iraq and Afghanistan, about lack of access to health care, etc., etc. So there are a lot of issues here, a lot of legitimate grievances, and I'm convinced that if we keep making enough noise, somebody's got to start asking questions about what does matter to us. The worst thing you can do to a human being is to make him or her feel invisible, to make them feel disposable, to make them feel like they're a calculation or they are an afterthought. And there's too much of that in this country. The humanity of too many people is being contested every day. What we are fighting against is the contestation of the humanity of too many Americans of all races, colors, creeds, etc. So I came back tonight to talk to CNN and to talk to Keith and of course my own show on PBS and on NPR and PRI, but to try to raise your voice through the voice and the platform that I have about how significant and how necessary this is. So I celebrate your courage, I celebrate your conviction, I celebrate your commitment, I celebrate your character for being out here. And for all those watching on this live stream right now, this is the place you need to be. Our voices have to be heard, our grievances have to be raised, Please welcome America's leading public intellectual, Dr. Cornell.
Such a sweet spirit here in Los Angeles because you have consecrated this space by bearing witness to justice. That's what you've done. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing. We want to be very clear. When we talk about corporate greed, we say that in the name of our love for poor people, our love for working people, our love for all of those who are catching hell. Don't let anybody say this movement is about hating people. We hate injustice and we love people, especially those who are catching hell. When we talk about corporate greed, we draw the connection between the corporate greed, not just on Wall Street, that has been involved in criminal behavior in the form of market manipulation and insider trading and fraudulent behavior and predatory lending, but also the corporate greed in the prison industrial complex.
Mario, you are on the way.
We've got brothers right now on strike, on lockdown, been on solitary confinement for 20-some years. That takes courage. Why? Because we're concerned about the humanity of each and every person. We don't care what color, what culture, what civilization, what gender, or what sexual orientation, or what religion or non-religion we have. We're concerned about the corporate greed and the corporate media complex.
Exactly.
With the weapons of mass distraction to try to cultivate addiction and self-medication and narcissism, so we're not concerned about public interest and common good. So when we talk about corporate greed, we don't have the demands like we got one or two demands with all of the creative voices here. We got a cacophony of voices. We like a Duke Ellington orchestra. Where everybody got all the different voices, and Duke is not conducting, he just got one voice among others, but he's on the piano doing his thing. That's democracy in action at the symbolic point. This is democracy in action on the ground. Don't let anybody tell you that somehow we just a shadow of the Tea Party movement. No way! No way! Yes, we're concerned about individual liberty, but we're concerned about social justice. Democratic accountability of the 1% who own 40% of the wealth and get 25% of the income. The 1% that has got 83% of all the income growth in the last 25 years, and the 10% that got 100% of the income growth, which means what? 40% of our children of all colors living in or near poverty. That is a national disgrace. It's a moral abomination. Our working people and the vicious attack on our trade unions, public unions as well as private, as if they have been the source of the financial catastrophe as opposed to what was going on Wall Street. Let's just tell America the truth. Let's tell America the truth. And the tradition of truth is always to allow suffering to speak. Suffering from wherever it comes. We are an inclusive group. Tea Party brothers and sisters look like the audience for Lawrence Welk in the National. I ain't got nothing against Lawrence Welk and Bubbles. But we look more like an audience for Lupe Fiasco. Or we look more like an audience for Carole King and James Taylor. We look more like an audience for Prince. That's the kind of audience we got. We cut against the grain, but it's our common humanity. So yes, we are open to prophetic Mormon brothers and sisters if they believe that corporate greed ought to be eliminated. Give the prophetic Mormon brothers and sisters a hand right now if they want to come here and join the movement. We're here for the progressive agnostic and atheistic brothers and sisters. Come and join the movement. Jr. Put it back up again. Show Brother Martin. Where's Brother Martin? Somebody put Brother Martin's picture up. That's part of our legacy too. For our prophetic Jewish brothers and sisters, come and fight corporate greed. This is part of the movement. Our Muslim brothers and sisters, come join the movement. Buddhist brothers and sisters, come join the movement. We cut against the grain. So don't let anybody tell you that we just a shadow of a Tea Party movement. No way! And not only that, but we are international, because corporate greed cuts across national boundaries, and we know we got to cut radically against the grain, and that's why it's a blessing for me to be here. And I know this the second time, and I don't want anybody to think just because I'm around a whole lot that somehow I have some weight of gravity. I'm just one small voice among all the voices. So we together, and we gonna fight together, struggle together. Thank you so very much, Brother Mario.
If you don't already know, the Los Angeles City Council has introduced a resolution in support of Occupy Los Angeles and Occupy Councilmember Al Racone introduced it, and Councilmember Bill Rosenthal added to it, and they break down the reasons why we're here very clearly. The media wants to portray that we don't have a message, that we don't have a reason for being here. If you haven't seen this resolution, please read it. I don't know if I have time to read it now. Read it! The resolution reads as this: whereas Angelenos, like citizens across the United States, are reeling from a continuing economic crisis that threatens our fiscal stability and our quality of life. And whereas Occupy Los Angeles is fueled by Angelenos from all walks of life who have come together in demonstration of solidarity with and support for the national movement started by Occupy Wall Street protests that began 17 days ago. And whereas on Saturday, October 1st, 2011, Occupy Los Angeles started a peaceful protest on the lawn of City Hall that continues through this day. And Occupy Los Angeles demonstrators are working to secure permits to continue the protest. Whereas over 70 additional, and we know it's 140, they made a mistake. 140 additional Occupy protests have taken root across the country, from large demonstrations in Boston and San Francisco to dozens of smaller ones in between, with many being planned every hour, including large-scale occupation college movements set to begin at noon today on college campuses across the United States. And whereas the protest in Liberty Plaza called Occupy Wall Street released its first official resolution on September 30th, 2011, available at a website, providing an overview of the goals and unifying principles of the Occupy movement. And whereas the Occupy demonstrations are a rapidly growing movement with the shared goal of urging U.S. citizens to peacefully assemble and occupy public space in order to create a shared dialogue by which to address the problems and generate solutions for economic distressed Americans. And whereas the causes and consequences of the economic crisis are eroding every social contract upon which the Constitution of the United States of America was founded, naming the ability of Americans to come together and form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense of, promote the general welfare of, and secure the blessings of liberty for all, allowing every American to strive for and share in the prosperity of our nation through cooperation and hard work. And whereas today, corporations hold undue influence and power in our country, and the key to this power is the corporate claim to personhood, an opinion by both the U.S. Supreme Court Justice Hugo Black and William O. Douglas declared should be revised. And whereas the United States Supreme Court's recent 5-4 ruling in Citizens versus the Federal Election Commission rolled back legal restrictions on corporate spending in the electoral process, consequently influencing the selection of candidates, the outcome of elections, and policy decisions, threatening the voices of the people. And whereas our economic system can only be called broken when one considers that currently over 25 million Americans who seek work are unemployed. For more than 50 million Americans are forced to live without health insurance, and even using our current poverty measures that is widely recognized to be inadequate and outdated, more than 1 in 5 American children are growing up poor in poor households that lack access to resources that provide basic survival needs such as food, clothing, and shelter. And whereas the U.S. Center of Disease Control, CDC, released the CDC Health Disparity and Inequality Report, United States 2011, revealing that income inequalities in the United States highest in the world among any advanced industrial nation, with widespread inequalities in U.S. health outcomes by income, race, and gender. And whereas over the past 30 years, both the average and the median wage of Americans have remained almost stagnant, while the average individual worker contributes to the GDP has soared to 59%, and the economy has doubled, all after adjusting for inflation. And whereas over the past 30 years, almost all gains to the economy have occurred to the very top income earners, largely the top 1%, who now control 40% of the wealth in the United States, in great part as a result of policy changes that are irreversible, such as taxation. And whereas the Institution of Policy Studies indicates that the top 1% of Americans own half of the country's stocks, bonds, and mutual funds. And whereas 400 richest Americans at the top control more wealth than 180 million Americans at the bottom. And whereas the Los Angeles County Federation of Labor has officially endorsed Occupy Los Angeles and Occupy Wall Street in a statement of support, saying the Los Angeles labor movement stands with its sisters and brothers occupying Wall Street, downtown Los Angeles, and cities and towns across the country who are fed up with the unfair economy that works for 1% of Americans while the vast majority of people struggle to pay their bills, get an education, and raise their families. And whereas the Los Angeles County Federation of Labor Statement of Endorsement continues, the Occupy Wall Street movement is mobilizing for a fair economy across the country, including Los Angeles. This movement is taking stand against corporate bullies, banks, investment firms that not only create our economic collapse in 2008, but they continue to take advantage of it today, making billions in profits while demanding further wage and benefit cuts from American workers. And whereas Americans must resolve some of the divisive economic and social realities facing our nation in a peaceful way to avoid further deterioration of our greatest assets, our human capital. And whereas in cognizance that one of the factors spurring recent violent revolution protests in the Middle East is high income inequality, though the sobering reality is that income inequalities in the United States is even higher than that of some of the countries torn asunder by violent revolutions. For instance, according to the CIA War Factbook, the United States Gini coefficient, which is used to measure inequality, is higher than the Egypt's pre-revolution. And whereas the fiscal impact of the continuing economic crisis is disastrous to education, public services, infrastructures, and essential safety net services that have historically made America successful, with school class sizes growing while teachers are laid off, and forcing cities and states to make sobering choices that just a few years ago would have been unthinkable, such as how to cut hours and services from public safety provisions, delaying and neglecting to maintain essential physical infrastructures, including roads, sewers, water and power delivery, and cutting service provided by our libraries, recreation, and park facilities. And whereas one of the largest problems causing our economy to continue to flounder is the foreclosure crisis, with some banks continuing to use flawed and in some cases fraudulent procedures to flood the housing market with foreclosures. Such as recent revelations of widespread foreclosure mismanagement by mortgage services who fail to properly document the seizure and sale of homes, in some cases foreclosing without legal authority to do so, prompting the 50-state Attorney General investigation of foreclosure procedures. And whereas California has been particularly hard hit by foreclosure crisis, with 1 in 5 U.S. foreclosures in California and 1.2 million foreclosures in California since 2008, with a projection of a total of 2 million California foreclosures by the end of 2012. And more than a third of California homeowners locked in an underwater mortgage, with few banks offering any type of principal reduction modification, even given federal, state, and city programs offering to split the balance of the modification with the banks. And whereas the cost of foreclosure crisis to California taxpayers include property tax revenue losses estimated at $4 billion, and local, county, and state government losses to respond to foreclosure-related costs estimated at $17 billion, including the costs such as maintenance of blighted properties, sheriff eviction inspections, public safety, trash removal, and other costs at $19,229 for every foreclosure. And whereas on March 5th, 2010, the Los Angeles City Council unanimously passed the resolution banking measure, a responsible banking measure, and it has the number here, which would create a responsible banking program from the city of Los Angeles, securing financial institutions that the city pays to conduct city business along a Los Angeles-specific community reinvestment score that measures the amount of home loan modifications extended to Los Angeles homeowners, the amount and location of bank branches maintained throughout the city, and the amount of affordable housing dollars invested in the city. And whereas the responsible banking program, a practical approach to ensuring accountability, would therefore provide an important fiscal incentive for bank institutions. 1, invest more in the city and our citizens, particularly by stabilizing the housing market, providing our community development institutions and nonprofits with increased affordable housing funds. And 3, provide incentives for additional economic development drivers to spur increased fair lending and equitable investments in Los Angeles by leveraging a model similar to the Federal Community Reinvestment Act. Now, therefore, be it resolved with the concurrence of the mayor that the adoption of this resolution, the city of Los Angeles hereby stands in support with all capital letters for the continuation of the peaceful and vibrant exercise in First Amendment rights carried out by Occupy Los Angeles, and urges the city departments responsible for completing and implementing associated with responsible banking measures that will approve which was approved by the City Council on March 5th, 2010, which would address some of the concerns of Occupy Los Angeles demonstrators by demanding accountability and results from banks we invest in taxpayers' dollars. To bring to the responsible banking measure for a final vote to the Council by October 28, 2011. There are 6 signatures from the City Council. They will be voting on this on Tuesday at 10 a.m. inside this building on the 3rd floor. You can call your council member in support of this. You can join us inside and thank them for introducing this resolution. And if the media tells you we don't know what we're out here fighting for, here's a list right here. City Council.
All right. Once again, give thanks to Dr. Cornell Wilson Talbot for coming out. All right. We got another poet up here, so